Welcome, everyone. You are joining us today for SmarTech Spotlight. We are going to be highlighting some industry leaders on this channel for B2B, SaaS, marketing, and MarTech, marketing technology. Fortunately, at SmarTech here, we have a lot of really great partners that we leverage. My name is Brian Butler. I am the CEO of SmarTech. SmarTech is a company that specializes in marketing technology support. We work with HubSpot, we work with Tapclicks, we work with Channable, and we do a lot of the stuff that you hate doing. Frankly put, most people hate this side of marketing, all the tracking and GTM and Google Analytics and all that crap. So we handle that for you, which is really exciting. But through that process, we work with a lot of cool companies and a lot of really great partners. Today, we have with us the members from Canoe. We have Billy Mitchell and Joe Pellegrino, who are the leaders of the Canoe marketing group. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
Thank you.
Doing well, man. Billy, why don't you take a quick second and talk about Canoe? You're the founder and CEO, correct?
Absolutely. And just as a point of clarity, we're not the Canoe marketing group. We're just the Canoe group, but we have arms or oars to serve the marketing channels, to serve, as we'll get into, other areas of a business. But ultimately, the shortest version of the long startup phase to Canoe started probably about 5 years ago when the company SearchLogic was going through a period of change, trying to figure out who we were and what we were doing, realizing that a lot of clients were asking for a lot more than SearchLogic could offer. And foundationally or fundamentally, the leaders at SearchLogic and I thought and feel as though having a one-stop agency isn't the best path forward, specifically for SearchLogic. We wanted to make sure that we remained in our seat and in the lane that we operate the best at, which is paid advertising for medium to enterprise level businesses. However, the need still existed. And so I started a company called the Canoe Group. Partially, it's named after my children, Caleb and Noah. And the other portion, for the reason of the name, is it really illustrates the journey that we take businesses on. And over the last 4 years, it has evolved quite a bit. We went from becoming an agency or an organization that specialized in growth marketing to revenue management, and now to a place where we help business owners prepare their organization for exit. And we do that through a philosophy that we have called Built to Sell, which consists of our 5 landmarks of a business that we want to dive into, optimize, and improve, that are historically shown to increase your multiple or the valuation of your organization as each of those landmarks are operating efficiently. One of the primary ones, and certainly part of the reason we're on this call, is that marketing and revenue arm, which SearchLogic, SmarTech, and other partners that we call the ecosystem participate in. So I'm sure we'll dive down that rabbit hole in a little bit. But Joe is my partner in Canoe, and frankly, it was no more than a year ago that we actually met, and the relationship went extremely fast. And just in the last 6 months, have we really honed in on who we are and what we're up to. In large part, Joe really took that piece and kind of ran with it. So pretty exciting that he's been able to take his vision and incorporate it into my vision to ultimately create a third vision, and the one that's the best in the right way forward. So, Joe, do you want to kind of take it from who you are and I guess where you plugged in and took it to the next level?
Yeah, the thing that I love so much about Canoe is, we've kind of been in our own little canoe of a journey to take it where it is today, right? And I think that's what makes what makes the model so strong today, because it is the result of kind of going down a pathway that we thought was the right pathway, hitting bumps and bruises, and really ultimately, seeing a problem open up in the marketplace and tailoring our model to fit that. So to give you a little bit of context, when Billy and I met about a year and a half ago, we were looking at Canoe as solely a revenue generation company, and all about the strategy of your revenue generation, which is a huge piece of it. so I come from the marketing world generally. I grew up in it. My dad owned a newspaper when I was a teenager, and it was always just sort of like my default. And I think that's what attracted me to Canoe in the first place, where it's like, all right, this is sort of like a shinier version of my default. But over the last couple of years, as I've been working with business brokers, particularly in the lead generation space, the crazy thing is that you find that, out of every 100 leads that raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in selling my business, maybe 1% of them are actually qualified to sell their business, are actually in a place where it makes sense to sell their business. So with one of the specific brokers I was working with, I kept seeing this over and over again, where I'd have conversations with leads and be like, man, don't sell yet. Like, there's like a couple of little things you could do that will really increase your value. And the way that, at the end of the day, a business is worth what someone will pay for it, right? Valuations are a great baseline to use, but at the end of the day, it's worth what someone will pay for it. So there's a lot of intangibles that that go towards what that valuation is. And the more of these intangibles that sort of pile up, the higher your multiple rating becomes. And so, you might be at a certain revenue level and increase to another revenue level. And just by way of maybe the industry that you're in, just by way of increasing your revenue to a certain level, you now actually can multiply multiply your EBITDA on that level of revenue higher, right? So at $1 million, you might be able to multiply the EBITDA by 3. Well, at $3 million in a certain industry, because the intangible side of that, man, if you've reached $3,000 in $3 million in revenue, you've got your crap together. Well, now you can actually multiply by 5. So it becomes a sort of exponential equation. And so, kind of coming back down to earth for half a second here, what Billy sort of explained as, our 5 landmarks, right? The 5 different pieces that every business sort of that every business is influenced by, those being operations, revenue generation, profitability and bookkeeping, human resources, and legal and compliance. Those 5 areas are really what's going to lead a business owner down the pathway toward a better valuation. If we pull the levers in certain ways on these different kind of pieces. So, for example, on the marketing side, right? It's about juicing up. It's about juicing up the revenue. That's sort of almost the simplest side of it, right? What are the low hanging fruit opportunities that we can drive forward to increase your revenue? But then on the operation side, it's, well, hey, do you have your operation documented? Do you have your standard operating procedures? These are all the little things that are going to go toward that sort of final sales price when you're ready to go. So that's kind of, that's kind of high level, what we do as the Canoe Group and why we exist. And I probably over answered that question, but there you go.
No worries. Yeah, it's all good. So I guess how do you guys differ from a traditional business broker?
We are not business brokers. We essentially are, for lack of a better term, an intermediary between the business owner and the business broker. So the idea is working with Canoe. Ultimately, the end goal of working with Canoe is serving up your business listing on a silver platter to the best broker.
Gotcha.
We have close connections with brokers nationally, and depending on the industry is what depends on which broker we're gonna assign to your business. And so once when a client engages with us, we actually bring in the broker straight away to value the business and get an understanding of what the baseline looks like. And the broker is actually part of our strategy in terms of, okay, what are the levers that we need to pull to get them to their goal value? Then the broker goes away, right? And the broker is in the background looking for potential, buyer opportunities and things like that. But really, that is now a separate thing that's happening from what the Canoe Group is doing, because what we're doing is we are walking alongside the business owner almost as their partner, as like a non-equity partner. And we're doing it with them, right? Like, hey, your goal is you want to sell for 10 million. Well, if you want to sell for 10 million in 7 months, you got to be doing this, and you're not doing it. Right. So it's a very partner oriented relationship. And that's really what our clients enjoy about us, is that it's not just us strategists just kind of sitting above on the cloud being, it's we're working together.
Okay. So help me understand, so if I'm a small business owner, and in my case, for people who don't know me as well, I actually, my wife and I own a small Turkish towel company, right? And originally, when we were talking about building this company, I had no idea you could actually sell a business. My thought about it was I want to learn how to do other aspects of marketing. So I started a business. Like being in marketing for 15 years, I've always worked in the operations side of marketing, right? Like you bring the lead in or you bring the sale to a website. But once the sale gets to the website, it's kind of out of our hands, right? So as a marketer, we don't deal with things like taxes. We don't think like shipping. We don't deal with returns. There's a lot of things as just straight marketers that you don't get to experience. So we started a small business because we wanted to not only test and try that information, but we wanted to understand the process after the sale goes from like e-commerce, the Google ad into the shopping cart. Well, what happens then? What happens with pick, pack, and ship? What happens with 3PL? What happens with if you need to scale your business, right? And so as a small business owner, we've been kind of on this journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question to you from that is if for other small business owners who are hearing this call and they're thinking, well, I didn't even think about acquisition. Like I'm doing this for a job. I'm doing this because I love what I'm doing. I've never even considered acquisition. Like, how would you talk to someone who is in that position where they're now just even considering what acquisition would even look like and trying to understand the idea of this is a possibility for me and like I could actually like make a pretty decent return from this. Talk me through that as if I'm a brand new business owner. I have this towel company I'm starting. I'm trying to maybe invest in new inventory. Like at what point should we have a discussion about acquisition? Where does that revenue come in? I'll let you speak, but I just want to give you kind of set the preface.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of people in my shoes who have never even considered acquisition and what the value and what the opportunity value could be.
Mm-hmm. That, Joe, I'll start this one because that is literally why we're doing what we're doing. Brian, you know this as well as Joe. I've started several companies, SearchLogic being the longest standing one, Canoe being the more recent one. And one of the things that small business owners, especially as you're starting up, you're not thinking about the exit. In fact, the vast majority of it, you're just trying to cover payroll. You're trying to get new revenue. You're trying to make sure the product is good or the service. You're trying to make sure the customers are happy. Is our website working? Do we need this? Do we need that? Oh, now this customer's upset. Now this employee's upset. Oh, now we just lost some revenue. Now there's just a constant slew of day-to-day things that ultimately you lose sleep over, right? And so for Joe and I, really a key important detail is we do want to get into the minds of small business owners as early as possible, because when you have nothing when you don't have history to your business, it's one of the best times to start building your business to sell it. And I think the key to understand is almost every business should be positioned to sell just on the instance that it might sell at some point. Who knows? Maybe there's a death in the family and you've got to liquidate. Who knows? Maybe you pass away and your family needs to take over the business and they're not qualified to do it. Well, how are you going to, is your business ready to sell? You may get to a point where it's like, hey, if somebody offered me $10 million for my company, I'm going to sell it, but it's only worth one. So, if somebody gives me 10, absolutely, I'm walking away. So all of these pieces play into that mindset, Brian, which is exactly right. Oh, I could sell this thing. I didn't even think about that, or I don't even know what that would look like. So yeah, in anticipation of individuals just like yourself, Joe and I have started part of Canoe. We have a collab, which is, for all intents and purposes, it is a mastermind community, but the idea is come and learn about all of the important landmarks that you need to be working on in order to improve the value of your organization. And along that way, you're going to learn best practices for building your business in preparation of sale. So, Brian, for you right now, operations, standard operating procedures, marketing content, obviously technology is an important one for you with SmarTech. So having all of those ducks in a row, excellent. Legal and compliance, where's your risk? What is the risk to your business? Probably supply of your material, right? So what happens if your material dries up? And you have backups, right? So having those things in place where you can almost almost slide a book across the table to somebody who wants to acquire your business, and all of the answers, all of the ways, all of the numbers, all of the everything that makes you or your business the business is clear and understandable. Automatically you're going to become more sellable or listable at that point.
Listable by, you mean like listing with a business broker?
Correct.
Gotcha.
And really, we talk a lot about business sales specifically, but when we refer to exit planning, sometimes it's just exiting. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to be out of my business. I want someone else to run it. I want to not worry about my business, but I want to retain ownership of it. It's the same exact process, right? It's the same basic concept.
So is that like installing a CEO at that point?
Potentially. Again, it looks different for everybody, right? So it's it's very much an applicable service to virtually any business. It's more about the business owner. When we think about who we want to work with and who we work best with, it's less about industry, it's less about size, it's less about the specific goal, and it's more about who the business owner is. If they are someone that is very much on an island, that they're very much alone. We love working with owner operated businesses where the owner is doing a very large percentage of the work, or at least more than they ought to be doing from an efficiency perspective. Those are the guys that we really like to work with. And like Billy said, we have a spread of services that kind of fit different revenue models,
different needs.
On not so much needs, but more what you can afford, right? Affordability. So our collab is our sort of low price model to get. It's the educational side of things, right? But really what we specialize in is building the build to sell strategy and then walking with you through it. That's what we really specialize in. And that's what we love doing, because Billy and I are extremely relational guys. We've both been in the situation that our clients are currently in to one degree or another. And we just love walking through it with you, because again, it's not rocket science. What we do is not rocket science. It's very much specialized. It's very much unique, but it ain't rocket science. At the end of the day, business owners are smart. Business owners are savvy. That's why they've gotten to where they are now. And sometimes you just need that partner to walk through this with you.
Gotcha. So what do you think is the most intimidating part about the idea of selling your business that you guys are able to kind of help alleviate for people as they're going through this? Like, there's got to be a fear, right? Like you're losing your in some cases probably your identity. Like, you've owned this business for so long, right? I have to imagine there's something that intrinsically is that fight or flight model as a business owner, kind of approaching this chasm. Really, how would you approach that?
Yeah, it's funny because we see it sort of on two ends of the spectrum. We see some guys that are like, yeah, I'll sell my business for $15 billion. And they way overvalue their business. And there's like this disconnect between, how they value their business and what the business is actually worth and what their place in it is. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get the guys who are like, my business is kind of like what you were saying, Brian. Like, I've never even thought of selling. It's not worth anything. Like, And so, we certainly deal in that space and helping them, educating them to understand actually what the value is. And once you understand your baseline value, then you can talk about growing it. But when you kind of talk about, the more personal identity side of things, it's really interesting. And I think it is less of an obtrusive obstacle and more of like an underlying thing that just kind of, creates a little bit of weakness. So one client that we have, he would certainly not verbalize that the business is his identity, but he lives and breathes it. And so as we're trying to help him to pull out of it, he is just magnetized to every little task that he should not be involved in, but he's magnetized to it. And again, I don't know that he would directly say, oh, this is my identity and that's why I don't want to let it go. But there is this like magnetism to, well, what you're used to and what you ultimately gravitate towards.
Fascinating. Okay. Interesting. So obviously this is a marketing podcast, right? And business acquisition is something that everybody who owns a business might be considering, or maybe they're not considering. But when you're working with people to establish that value, how do you see marketing and the investment of marketing being part of that equation? Because I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to marketing, you have to invest in your business. And, a lot of people that I've talked to over the last 15 years, they don't understand initially, like they come at me and they say, hey, I got 1% or 2% of my revenue I'm willing to put back into marketing. And they don't realize they're literally suffocating their business, and they're not really seeing that value. So if I'm a business owner and you're telling me, hey, I got 10% of my revenue that you want me to put back into marketing, like there's no way I can afford that. Talk to us about how you typically see marketing being a linchpin with these sales, or maybe not. I mean, it could be there's not a linchpin in some cases, but I want to know kind of like what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, so I'll take the lead on that one. The reality is that there's a few critical components to business valuation that play a significant role, right? There's certainly a lot of intangibles that Joe was talking about earlier, but one of the primary metrics is revenue and revenue growth. I would say as well, revenue stability. Quite frankly, the only way to really impact revenue is through sales and marketing. And my philosophy is that every business that exists has a sales and marketing funnel happening at this point, whether they know it or they don't know it, whether they're managing it or not managing it, whether it's intentional or unintentional. If you are producing revenue, you have customers, you are marketing and selling your business on a regular basis. How you interact with your customers, how you interact with the industry, how you're communicating with vendors and partners and employees, etc. So every business is automatically in the marketing and sales game. So for you to impact your multiple or your valuation, you have to put some effort into marketing and sales. It just has to happen, because at the end of the day, you have to impact revenue. And unless somebody is buying a business that they know does not have a solid marketing and sales strategy at play, and they intend to put their own in, a business needs to see routine, sustainable growth over periods of time. And that requires a very strategic, thought out process for your marketing and sales strategy with that tied to a revenue forecast, right? And so having an understanding of the valuation and revenue level that a business is currently at, comparing that to the valuation and revenue level that they need to be at in order for them to successfully exit at what they desire, there needs to be a plan and a strategy to grow the revenue through that delta. So let's say that we need to increase the valuation of this organization by $2 million over the next 12 to 24 months. Well, we know that means that, $160,000, $170,000, $180,000 a month in new reoccurring revenue needs to be added in order to increase a business $2 million, right? So if in revenue, that is. So then you've got to basically reverse calculate in order to achieve $170,000 in new MRR, if that's the structure of your organization. Then what's our current deal size? What do we think we can get our current deal size to? Where are those audiences? What kind of referral partners can we get into play? What's our our sales and marketing collateral currently? What's our website look like? What's our messaging? What kind of content calendar or creative and content calendar do we have in play? And going through and focusing on each of those critical components within that ecosystem to understand which lever, which button you can push and pull to increase certain responses within the marketing that are going to generate more of the sales that you need. Then you can build that plan from a 12-month, 18-month, 24-month period that says, if we do these practices, we're going to start to increase our MRR by X% each quarter over quarter over quarter. And that's where partners like SmarTech, like SearchLogic, and others come to the table, and we basically say, we go to our partners, and in the marketing space, predominantly SearchLogic and SmarTech, we come to the table and say, this customer needs to grow this amount. Please help us build out that strategy. What does that look like? Because you're the experts. You're the ones that know how to do this. So bring us the strategy and the plan for how to accomplish this. And then from there, it's a combo effort with Joe and I and the marketing strategist to say, here's what we need to do. Here's what you need to invest. Here's how we're going to achieve it. Here's the timeline. And then the owner obviously is the one that says, sounds good, let's go. Joe, you have any gaps to fill on that?
No gaps to fill. I want to back you up in saying that, yeah, I mean, when you look at our 5 landmarks that I described earlier, marketing and finances are the 2 biggest ones, because those are the ones that directly affect the number. The other 3 affect the multiple, which again, big deal, but the baseline number is, revenue is what runs the whole thing, right? And Brian, to your point, our clients need to be ready to invest in that. This is not a case where we are the investment. There's fees, right? We have our fees that we take, but we're not the investment.
But you're a non-equity partner though, right? Like, so when I'm talking about fees, we're not looking at you guys coming in and taking 5% of the business in order to help prepare for sale, right? As you're not coming in and, approaching that level of the market. We're more of approaching this as more of a, hey, fee for service or retainer for service. Like, while you need us, we're here, but it isn't like the business owner has to give up equity necessarily. Nope. So I think that's maybe a common misconception.
Yeah, no, not at all. And that's where it's funny. I'm careful of how I use the word partner, because it really, when I say partner, I mean the relationship, not necessarily the equity behind it. Right. We are relationally.
Yeah, totally.
In partnership with you. But yeah, I mean, it's an investment, and you need to be prepared for that investment. Now, in most cases, the clients that we're working with are already making significant investment into marketing, right? We have one client that's spending, easily 6 figures a month. And it's more about, okay, how are you spending that money? When you're dealing with smaller clients that have much lower revenue, it's a little bit of a harder, pill to swallow, where it's like, hey, you need to start spending X number of dollars in marketing. And that really is why we prefer to work with businesses that are doing at least $1.5 million annually in revenue, because that really set the stage for, what all is going to need to happen. It's a lot easier of a pill to swallow when you're already in that range.
I love it. No, that makes sense. Yeah, marketing can be such a huge, pivot point, right? It's a huge element where you can scale it up or scale it down. And I think there's a lot of difference when people are investing in paid assets versus owned assets, right? At SmarTech, we work with a lot of HubSpot clients. We work with a lot of reporting clients and a lot of marketing clients. And I think one of the things that people maybe overvalue sometimes is just the need for having a well-diversified portfolio of marketing, whether that be, a good sales strategy, whether that be an email strategy, whether that be a good content strategy, all in line with an SEO strategy and a paid media strategy that really kind of levels at the bar. I know we've had clients that we've shared where their SEO is so limited that the only way for them to tip the needle is to pay for it. And so a lot of times, people think, I'm just going to just invest in paid, or I'm just going to invest in organic. And while paid media, has been my lifeline for 15 years, it isn't the only thing you can do as a business to grow. And I think a lot of people really need to understand that diversity, that you have to invest not only in one channel or not just in, email marketing, but you really have to kind of spread that out and diversify, because after the business is sold, right? If that new owner doesn't invest the same as you did in paid media, they have an owned asset that they get to retain, right? Like, when you sell a business, the SEO doesn't go anywhere. But when you sell a business, the paid media side is still intrinsic to whatever the new owner wants to spend. I mean, the old owner could be spending $1 million, but the new owner could say, I don't believe in paid media. I'm not going to do it. And all of a sudden, all that value you've produced goes away.
Well, and what's funny is that some business transactions require the previous owner to stay on board for a period of time, and there's some contingencies. For example, there was one deal I recently saw where they got the seller got 70%, and then he got 30% after 2 years if his numbers can remain consistent. But if you've got a new
so there's a vested
ownership,
interest in the business
he's got a vested
continuing to
interest. There are
succeed.
deals that happen. Here's the thing. Deals can happen any which way. And that's why you want to make sure that you can capitalize on all 5 of the landmarks in all the different ways possible, because you're going to have a lot more weight when you say, hey, look, when I put X number of dollars into the marketing machine, this is what it generates. When I put lower than that, this is what it generates. To be able to go to your new to the buyer and say, look, here's your map. You are, again, that is implicitly going to drive up the value of your business, because now you're giving them the roadmap. Whereas when you have a business where all that's nebulous, a buyer might come in and be like, I'm going to slash all the stuff that I think is unimportant, and then he's going to get sunk. Now, we talked about identity earlier. For a business owner that's selling his business, whether there's a contingency or not, he doesn't want to see that business burn up in flames, right? He wants to make sure that buyer has the best shot at success.
He wants to protect it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. No, that's a good answer to that. And I think it's true. It's one of those things where, it's interesting to hear about the continuation, right? Like, we do have clients we worked with where the business was sold and the owner's still on board. He's still like basically a contracted employee for the next, 2 or 3 years. And we've seen that directly. And it is interesting to see, them struggling to kind of let go a little bit and let the new owners kind of take over. So it's interesting to see that.
Yeah.
So just as we're getting towards kind of the end of our time here, Billy, I know we talked a little bit about, expressing a bit more information about our relationship. I mean, obviously I've worked with you for going on 6 years now. We've had a great relationship together. And as we've done that, we've built a really great community and a really great ecosystem that we're leveraging together. And I'm really excited about what that is. Can we talk about the Canoe Group ecosystem and how the Canoe Group partners are working together to help businesses succeed and kind of take off a lot of the load off their shoulders? Because, I mean, what we're offering with this Canoe Group ecosystem is pretty game changing, I would say. I'm not seeing a lot of people in the market who are doing anything similar. I mean, to shorten up before I give Billy a mic, imagine if you had a hospital that was filled with independent surgeons that all had specialties, and each of those surgeons were not independent enough and they were only isolated, but they actually work together. I mean, have you ever been to a doctor's office where the doctor's like, well, I don't do that part of it. I'm not going to talk to that doctor. Oh, I need knee surgery. I need a hip surgery. Well, I'm not a hip surgeon. I'm not going to talk to that knee surgeon guy. What if the doctors all talked and each specialist was able to get in and say, well, he needs a knee surgery, but if you do this, it's going to affect my hip surgery. And if this hip surgery is done wrong, it's going to affect the knee surgery. So why don't we collaborate and make sure the surgeries are done in line and in order so that everything is done in correctly? Because you're a specialist and I'm a specialist, but if we do it wrong or at the wrong time, or if something doesn't go right, it could affect each other. And I think, as a marketing, specialist, as a heart surgeon in marketing, it's super important to know what other things are happening in marketing. And that's one of the most exciting things. Organic content, strategies, sales strategies, it all has to align. And when people are working in silos, those silos don't necessarily all work together as one. So Bill, I'll hand you the mic, but talk about what this ecosystem kind of is doing. What are people getting as part of the ecosystem, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah. First of all, I think you just solved the healthcare industry. That was a pretty good explanation of how it should work.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think to the most simple form of it, and I'll start high and then gradually go micro. Think of hub and spoke. So if Canoe is the hub, then its 5 landmarks are the spokes. We obviously call them landmarks, pillars, the oars.
The oars, the oars in the canoe.
Yep. In each of those sections, we have a core group that is the team or the resource for those sections. So within the legal, we have a lawyer who is our primary point of contact for legal and risk mitigation strategies. Same thing with operations, HR, et cetera, finance. So for the marketing side, as you move into
clarify. So Canoe Group doesn't just have marketing spokes; it actually has a legal spoke.
Yeah, so that is part of our landmarks. Yeah, so we will when we are working with a customer, we are looking at those 5 different areas of the business to understand what's working, what's not working, what's missing, and frankly, what's next. So the most relevant portion of that whole ecosystem there is in the marketing side for our conversation today. And
Yeah.
within the marketing side, SearchLogic has developed what we call the growth marketing ecosystem. And the idea behind this is basically what you just outlined, is we recognize SearchLogic as a service recognizes that paid advertising is what we are the best at. You don't necessarily want us looking at your landing pages saying, hey, you should or you shouldn't do this with your landing page. We do understand and know best practices, but we're not designers. We're not creative people in that way. We're data geeks, right? And so we want to look at numbers. We want to see results, and we want to take that information and imply, optimizations that would improve the results. But as I mentioned earlier, our customers are always asking for more SEO, social media, content, creative, design, technology, right? And so SearchLogic has created the growth marketing ecosystem where it is a network of partners that are vetted by SearchLogic, who we've worked with or have direct experience from others who are working with them that say, these are the best in the industry. These are the ones you want to work with. These are the individuals, the companies that will produce the best results. And so when a customer then has this overall strategy, then we can say, okay, let's pull on this SEO team. Let's pull on this social team. Let's pull on this creative team, because they're the best suited to serve this customer. So within that ecosystem, we're able to bring to the table kind of that the A team, if you will, if you're old enough, to come and just tackle that marketing strategy. So that's the ecosystem as a whole, and kind of how it applies within the marketing or, if you will. And the idea just overall is just that most business owners, most companies that we work with, they've got so much going on that for them to have to go and identify a new agency, a new service, a new tactic, a new whatever that might be, is just another thing that they have to do. And if we can remove one thing or more from their shoulders, it obviously serves them in a way that, is going to create a longer standing relationship. And that's really the focus and our goal of it. So from that, obviously SmarTech is part of that ecosystem. So for any of the technology needs, implementation, sales, training, etc., SmarTech is the go-to industry or go-to firm for that service, right? So as our customers say, hey, we need help with our HubSpot. Awesome. We've got somebody for you. And I think the important part is SearchLogic doesn't want to pretend to be a one-stop agency. We're not white labeling this. We're not showing this as like look at SearchLogic. We're saying, no, we know our limitations and we want to bring the right people to the table. We are going to enlist SmarTech to take care of this for you. And the customer is happy about that.
So with that, I mean, there's a lot of situations where clients just want one throat to choke, right? One person to go after if things aren't working, right? And we've had relationships like this before, where a client hires a brand agency and they say, hey, we're going to hire you. This is the overarching structure and strategy you need. You put the players in place to do this and get that done. Is there something where, as people come to Canoe and SearchLogic and say, hey, listen, I need paid media, I need SEO, I need a growth marketing strategy, my sales team just quit, I need to build a sales strategy. Is it something where someone can come to us and say, hey, I need these things, but I am so limited with my bandwidth, I don't have time to manage 7 calls a week with 7 vendors? How would you recommend a client approach that situation? And is there a benefit to working with us in that case?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I would say that I'll give the best broad answer, but it really is a case-by-case scenario, because every business is going to have different needs, different budgets. They themselves are going to be different sizes in different industries. But by and large, SearchLogic will and does operate as that. The account managers operate as that strategist, that key component that holds it all together. A customer's like, I can't do any of this, please take it all. Then our strategists, our account managers operate as that fractional demand generation manager for that team, or the marketing manager for that team. Now, it's usually more unlikely that all of it will just be placed on that table. It's usually pieced out, right? So maybe they've got a creative team in-house. Maybe they've got, social media they're just going to manage by themselves. Maybe they've got, one of SearchLogic's customers has a really strong SEO team internally, right? So there's really no opportunity, frankly, no reason to say, hey, let's replace your SEO team. In that case, we'll just work with that team, right? We'll operate in unison with that team, and then we'll pull the other team members or other agencies to the table. And yes, we can, if it's a need, help manage that relationship. And frankly, it's better, the more collaborative that we're working together as a whole anyways, the better that end result's going to be on everybody knowing what we're working towards and why.
And an example of this, I think is a really good one, Joe, and you can talk about this a little bit more. So we have a relationship where we have a client that we share. It's a client who, SearchLogic have been working with for close to 10 years, I think. And they needed extra support internally. And so Joe actually came in as part of the Canoe spoke of the team. And our calls with our account manager are with the client as well as with Joe. And Joe is acting as a client liaison. So we actually have a Canoe member in-house, almost like a fractional in-house guy who's working with our team to make sure that our paid media services are actually being effectively implemented on the back end when, we're not there at the warehouse. We're not seeing how many pieces of inventory are coming in every day. So Joe, can you talk about how that interconnected relationship and having the ability to kind of have almost like your how do I say it? Like your feet in two different oceans here. How is that helping? How do you find that to be a huge value for this client in how their growth can be kind of scaled?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we say we're going to be your partner, then we better be your partner, right? It does us no good if we approach it from a totally fractional perspective where we are, we're spending our time together with you, the client, filling me in on what's going on, and then I got to go back and think about it. And then it's just and that's what I've seen from a lot of fractional contract services, fractional consulting services. We take it to a degree that, we put ourselves in the client's shoes. Now with our exit planning clients, it's not necessarily me sitting with the marketing contractor, but it is one of our strategists sitting with the marketing contract, somebody from our team that's dealing with that. And again, that just like you were talking about earlier, like even with the medical illustration, it's the same thing. It's like, man, you don't want to have to share the same information over and over and over again and move information from one to the next. It's so inefficient. And so the idea is putting the right person who is in charge of the information in the right seat to where they're getting that information from the primary source, and they're not having to get it filtered through the client and time wasted and all that kind of stuff. And so that's really that's the heart behind what we're doing from the relational perspective. And listen, there's limits to that, right? We can't overpromise what we're able to. I mean, literally, we have many clients. And
you're not an employee. You're not sitting there working 40 hours a week.
Literally, but we prioritize that level of relationship to the degree that we do it as efficiently as we possibly can.
That's awesome. Gentlemen, as we finish up, is there anything kind of final bits that you want to talk about? And then I have one very important question at the very end that we'll get into.
Oh boy.
I feel like that's a setup over there.
It is.
No, I think the biggest takeaway is for anybody listening, there's always a reason and an opportunity to take a look at all of the different landmarks of your business to understand if there's efficiencies that can be gained. Even if you're not ready or thinking about selling, it's a good idea to assume the mindset of somebody who is building their business to sell it. Joe and I have talked about this often. At a certain point, owners can get to a certain point rather that they go, hey, I actually kind of like this business now. It's efficient. I'm not spending 120 hours a week on the business. I'm actually spending time with my family. I don't think I want to sell anymore. And the cool part about that is, A, they've got a really well-oiled, efficient machine. And two, they also have a business that's ready to sell when they are, provided they manage it, right? There's some ongoing work to do. But the point being is that, actually, Joe and I were just having this conversation a week or two ago. You buy a fixer-upper house, right? Or even better, you're going to go sell your house, right? And
Yep.
now you're looking at all the things that are wrong with your house, right?
Yep.
And, there could be the doorknob that's broken, the toilet that always is running, the hole in
leak
the
you never
wall,
fixed.
exactly. And so you start going through and you start fixing those things. Well,
Yep.
at the end of it, you go, this
damn,
house is kind of
this is
nice.
nice.
I kind of want to stay here.
Well,
Why am I
maybe
moving?
we don't need to sell. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, this is nice.
It's exactly that. So
Yeah.
if you are focused on your business in a way that's like, there may come a day where I have to sell this, or I want to sell this, and I want to be ready for that moment, it's going to revolutionize how you look at your business.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
Go ahead, Joe.
You said that one of the things you mentioned to me a while back was that the true measure of a business owner's success is, can they take a full 30 days out of the business, come back, and nothing changed?
Or, so the follow-up to that is that it retained its value or increased. Those are the two biggest caveats. And absolutely, it's a great book called Clockwork. And the guy who wrote the book, he challenges you at the starting of the book that, hey, at the end of this book, you're going to take a month off, and the business is going to remain equal or grow while you're gone. And if you can get to that point, that's a pretty phenomenal stage. However, just as a candid, backfill to that, you are always going to be needed in the business as a CEO or a founder of the organization until you have officially sold that business and you are mentally, emotionally, and legally stepped out. You will be needed in that organization. Yeah. So the goal is, can you do that for 30 days? And if you can, excellent.
Joe, same question to you. Last thoughts. Anything at the end of it you want to kind of point out here?
No, I mean, I think we've really kind of shown what's going on here with Canoe. And at the end of the day, like Billy said, whether or not you are explicitly planning to sell the business doesn't matter. If you're a motivated business owner that wants to grow their business and make the operation altogether more efficient and really just clean things up, let's have a conversation.
Love it. So the last question is probably the most important one. Marketing, business, it's all relational. None of this matters unless you like the people you work with, right? So this last question is more personal. We're halfway through the year. It's August. Can't believe that's even the case, but it is. Wow. Billy first, Joe second. What non-business, non-work related thing are you most looking forward to for the end of the year or through the end of the year? Put you on the spot here. I know I haven't prepped you this question, so you're going to have to think about it for a second. And that's okay. If you need a pass to Joe temporarily, Billy, that's perfectly fine.
Don't do that.
No, it's good. So my favorite thing in my life is my family and my wife and my boys. So school starts on Tuesday, and it's always a really exciting time because the boys love it. But second of all, we get into a really cool routine with sports, school activities, weekend getaways, whatever it might be. And so it's just a really fun time for us. And so I'm really excited about watching the boys grow and see what happens through the end of the year with them.
Yeah, for me, similar to Billy, my family is
way loud.
What?
Oh, I played a clapping clip at the end of his. But it was super loud. Oh. You guys didn't hear it?
No.
Oh, I could totally hear it. It was loud as hell.
That's fine.
All right, Joe, what were you going to say?
But yeah, no, similar to Billy, big family guy. I've got a son and a daughter. And we've got a couple of really exciting trips coming up over the next couple of months. I'm taking my wife out to Scottsdale at the end of the month. We're super excited about that, just to get away the two of us. And then we're taking the kids to Disney in September, and we're going up to Pigeon Forge and Memphis, Tennessee for Thanksgiving. So a lot of fun stuff kind of coming up.
Very cool.
This is our favorite time of year anyway, sort of like fall and then the lead up to Christmas, even though the seasons don't change here in South Florida. But yeah, this is my favorite time of year. So very exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for myself, so my wife and I actually are celebrating our 12-year wedding anniversary as of
Congratulations.
the end of last month. So like the end of July. And so her favorite place in the world is Disneyland. So literally like right after this podcast, I have one more call and then we're packing up and heading to the House of Mouse. And so she's going to have a weekend of Disney enjoyment. That's all hers. But my wife and I don't have kids. We don't have children. We have a fur baby who's a Pomeranian Husky mix. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see 100,000 pictures of him because he's pretty much the most photogenic thing in our house. But so we're excited because we get to take my parents to Rome at the end of the year. And it's a trip that we have been planning for probably 3 or 4 years now. We've been trying to kind of see if we could get it to work. And Billy's been in part of this conversation. It's been a vision and a dream of our family to be able to treat my parents to a trip. And they've never been to Europe. They've only been to like, Hawaii and that kind of stuff. And so we're doing the Colosseum tour. We're doing the Pompeii tour. And then my wife and I are taking a third trip on our own. And my parents are going to have a day off because, they're older. They don't have the dexterity to walk, for 4 days straight. But we're taking probably our shortest trip. We've been to 30 countries in 12 years. 31 actually. And so we've been, fairly well traveled, but my parents have not had that luxury. So this is a really exciting thing for us to be able to offer to them. And it's probably the biggest Christmas, birthday, gift we could probably give them. And my dad's birthday is into November and Christmas is right after. So they're not going to get anything else. This is all they're getting. But we're really excited for it. And Billy's been part of planning for that dream now for like 4 or 5 years now. So we're really excited about it. And it's probably the most exciting thing we have coming up. The last time we did something like this for them, we treated them to a trip to Disney. And it was my dad's first time to Disney in over 25 years.
Wow. That's
pretty
cool.
exciting.
That's great.
So giving them some memories to make, it's one of the time is such a weird construct, right? Like you don't think of time, you think of it as a different collection of memories that you just kind of leap to, right? The time that you're sitting in your office, working, you don't think about that time 10 years from now. Like I don't remember sitting in my office 10 years ago and what I was doing, but I remember the trips we took. I remember the times we spent together. So those making those memories is just so important. That quality time.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right, gentlemen. So if someone wants to talk to you about selling their business, or they want to talk to you about the hub and spoke of what they need to do to amp up their marketing and really kind of bring you guys to the table to help them understand a full strategy, how do they reach out to you? How do they contact you? What's the best approach?
Well,
yeah, I'd say, go ahead, Jeff. You take it.
If they just go to canoe.group, not .com, .group, canoe.group, they can, first of all, learn a little bit more about us. And there's a discovery request form on that page as well. So go on over there and send us your info. We'd love to talk with you.
Love it. Yeah, the .com is dead, everyone. That's a trendy new thing. It's .company, .group, .ai, .io. .com is dead. It's officially for the boomers right there.
Agreed.
All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to go ahead and thank you all for your time. You've been a guest on the SmarTech Spotlight, and we are here with Canoe, with Billy and Joe, and we're very excited to talk to you guys in the future. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, tune in for next week's show. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Adios.